But doesn't the Biden administration have to take some blame for the border, though? A lot of the blame? Because, I mean, the first 3 years, y'all did get a lot of things wrong with the border.
No, Charlamagne, within hours of being inaugurated, the first bill we passed before we did the Inflation Reduction Act, before we did the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, before we did the Safer Communities Act to deal with gun violence.
Vice President Kamala Harris just wrapped up an audio town hall that was an utter disaster, okay? This is with Charlamagne the fraud. It just started to spiral out of control, especially when he asked her about the border security. People asked her about reparations, and she couldn't answer these questions to save her life. Let's start with something that was recently a big issue during her campaign is Obama criticizing black men because they didn't want to vote for her. Here's her response to it.
But I do want to say, President Obama was out there last week waving his finger at black men. When are Liz Cheney and Hillary Clinton going to wave their finger at white women? When are Bill Clinton and Joe Biden going to wave their finger at white men? Because 52% of white women voted for Trump in 2016. 55% voted for Trump in 2020. They all voted against their own interests. When the finger waving going to start at them?
Well, thank you for highlighting that. I do have the support of over 200 Republicans who worked for various administrations, including everyone going back to Ronald Reagan, to the Bushes, to John McCain and Mitt Romney, and including Liz Cheney. And I'm very proud to have her support. And I believe that many of them who may have voted for Trump before are supporting me because they know the stakes are so high in terms of our very democracy and rule of law. And
so the finger wagging should start today or tomorrow.
Well, I think what is happening is that we are all working on reminding people of what is at stake, and that is very important.
Why is she celebrating that she has over 200 Republicans endorsing her? We are not stupid, Madam Vice President. We know that these individuals represent the establishment, okay? The everyday American does not want to hear from these people. They don't care that these people have endorsed you. They haven't done anything for these people like you haven't done anything for everyday Americans. So I don't see how that is something to celebrate. Why would you celebrate Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney? We know that he had actually the lowest approval rating out of any vice president, even Kamala Harris. I learned this the other day. So I don't think that's something you go around celebrating. And I also don't think shaming people in order to get them to vote for who you want them to vote for is the solution. And once again, what do you see from people on the left? They do the things that they are accusing Trump of doing. The bottom line is, I just think that was crazy, okay? So let's move to reparations, because there is a part of the black community that I guess wakes up every day and they want to see reparations passed in this country. And of course, Kamala Harris, she has flip-flopped on this so many times, but here's her most up-to-date position on it.
My question to you is, what's your stance on reparations? We all know that America became great, off the backs of free black labor. How progressive are you on making it a priority and righting America's wrongs? It's understood that you are running for president for all people of America. Asking for specifics for black communities doesn't mean don't do for others, but black Americans are heavily asked to vote Democrat in every election for over half a century with very little in return. What are your plans to address these very important issues and change that narrative?
Thank you, Zeke.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for your work. So to your point, yes, I am running to be a president for all Americans. That being said, I do have clear eyes about the disparities that exist and the context in which they exist, meaning history, to your point. So my agenda, well, first of all, on the point of reparations, it has to be studied. There's no question about that. And I've been very clear about that position. In terms of my immediate plan, I will tell you a few of the following. One, as it relates to the economy, which is a lot of what you have addressed. Look, I grew up in the middle class. My mother, worked hard, raised me and my sister. And by the time I was in high school, she was able to afford our first home. I know what it means for an individual and a family to have home ownership. I also know, in the context of history, nobody got 40 acres and a mule.
Oh, man. Why? How do you go from reparations to you grew up in a middle class home? You know, at this point, we know she's not listening to her campaign. I would imagine the people who run her campaign have told her, stop saying that. But I don't think she can help it. She is a career politician. It is muscle memory for her to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. It doesn't matter if it's going to land or not. It's who she is. Now, the problem with her, instead of Trump, because we know Trump is who he is, and he's going to say the same thing over and over and over again. But the difference is when he says it, it's entertaining and people connect to it. When she says it, people are like, why do you sound like a robot? Right. And this goes back to why people feel that she isn't fake. It goes back to why black men are not supporting her. Not my opinion. That's what the polls are saying. And Clown Lemon actually recently went on CNN today to express that point. Let's just briefly hear that comment from him.
All black voters, Kamala Harris, 63%. And then when you look at the real votes, the exit polls in 2020, Biden got 75, Hillary Clinton got 81, got even more than Biden. Then specifically, and that's the margin, I should say. These are the margins I'm talking about. Black male voters, specifically, Harris is plus 53, Biden plus 60, and Clinton is 69. Now, you have been traveling.
Yes.
You've been talking to a lot of voters. And I will just say that you texted me right around the Democratic convention, and you said, I am talking to people, and Kamala Harris has a problem with black men.
Yeah, and I told the campaign I did not hear from them. I mean, who am I for them to get back to me? But there's a problem. And look, I went from battleground state to battleground state. When they invited me to the convention, I didn't just want to fly there. I said, I'm gonna go and talk to voters in battleground states, and I did. It was not curated. I went up to people just doing man on the street and said, who are you going to vote for? Black men. And time after time after time, they said, I'm voting for Donald Trump.
Why?
Now, their reasons why. They said, because most of the time they said, well, you know, for economic reasons.
Okay, so not only is Kamala Harris desperate, but we know Clown Lemon is desperate. He got fired from CNN. I mean, this guy, just a waste of talent, in my personal opinion. I don't understand how you could work for CNN that long and be this bad after the fact. You would think after you've been fired, you would have learned a lesson or two. But hey, that's my own personal dig at Don Lemon. But what he said was absolutely true. You know, black men just don't support Kamala Harris, and has nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman. So let's correct that. It's got everything to do with her policies, her leadership, her record, her image, etc., etc. The stories go on and on. We've heard it 1,000 times, 1,000 different ways. And we arrive at the same conclusion. She is not going to get the black vote in the way that Democrats historically have gotten. And that is clearly an indictment on her as a candidate. It's got nothing to do with black people. And of course, one of the other bigger issues with her as a candidate is the record on the border. We know she was the border czar. We know she failed as the border czar. I don't care if you don't want to acknowledge that she was the border czar. The results were disastrous during the administration with her and Joe Biden, and there's no way to dispute that. However, listen closely to the way that Charlamagne the God asked her about the border and who is to blame. Listen.
But doesn't the Biden administration have to take some blame for the border, though? A lot of the blame? Because, I mean, the first 3 years, y'all did get a lot of things wrong with the border.
No, Charlamagne, within hours of being inaugurated, the first bill we passed before we did the Inflation Reduction Act, before we did the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, before we did the Safer Communities Act to deal with gun violence, first thing we dropped was a bill to fix the broken immigration system.
All right, a couple things here. Number one, she still will not let go of Joe Biden. I don't get it. Now, my take has always been that she feels guilty. She knows she didn't earn this nomination. She knows Joe Biden is the single reason why she was nominated in the first place. He endorsed her. I think he was the only person who actually had the balls to do that. I also think he only did it as a retaliation of being kicked out of the race, mind you. But we are where we are. And I just think emotionally, she can't throw him under the bus. I just think she's too loyal to him. And I think that may be the reason she's going to lose this election, because I don't know how else you make it any easier than that. He clearly asked her, hey, is the Biden administration to blame, not the Biden-Harris administration, but the Biden administration. And she could have easily said, hey, you know what? We did a lot of great things when it came to the border. We actually brought great policies to Congress for them to pass. They failed to do their job. And the one thing I'm going to do differently as the next president of the United States that we probably didn't get to during this administration is I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. And so we're going to be better than we've been over the past 4 years. So anyways, I mean, listen, I'm not supporting her campaign whatsoever, but I just think that either one, the people in her campaign are telling her to do it and she refuses to do it, or two, the people in the campaign are just saying, screw it. We don't need to separate from Joe Biden. We're good. And they are accepting that risk. I like to think that it's going to backfire on them, but that's just me. And once again, it goes back to why people don't support her in the numbers that the Democratic Party was hoping for.
This is the Democrat versus Trump marching. Compare 4 years ago, Trump won among male voters by just 5 points. Look at where we stand today. My goodness gracious, Donald Trump doing considerably better among male voters, up by 12 points. That's a 7-point swing in Donald Trump's direction. Keep in mind that 7-point swing, because I want you to take a look at what's going on with female voters, all right? What do you see here? There is no swing. Nothing's going on. There is no change from where we were 4 years ago, right? Biden versus Trump. Biden won him by 13. Look where Harris leads in the polls right now, by 13. The idea that women would be supporting a Democrat isn't so surprising, while men would be supporting a Republican, again, not surprising. But the fact that we've seen this movement among male voters, and there's been no movement whatsoever among female voters, that, my friends, is quite surprising. It's something, honestly, I wasn't really expecting.
Yeah, so there's been no movement when it comes to women for Kamala Harris, but there's been a big increase when it comes to men for Trump, and part of that is black men. And so a lot of the questions you heard from today were from black men. Why? Because we know she's trying to get black men to vote for her at the last minute, and it's not going to work. And you might say, well, why is that? It's because she has been more focused on attacking Trump than actually detailing her plans, her vision, and her policies to not just black men, but to independent voters.
So yesterday I read that there is a new opportunity agenda, a plan for black men, which includes a proposal of forgivable loans up to $20,000 for 1 million black entrepreneurs. What would you say to the people that would consider the timing of this proposal as political timing? And how would you speak to the sentiment that support for black men is only sought out during election cycles, and feels that building trust requires consistent engagement and genuine investment into the community outside of election periods, and political benefits for politicians, and may view that some people in the Democrat Party use black Americans to play identity politics?
So first of all, thank you for your question and for being here. I've been in this race about 70 days. You can look at all my work before those 70 days to know that this, what I'm talking about right now, is not new and is not for the sake of winning this election.
Did this audio town hall do Kamala Harris any favors? Absolutely not. Okay, absolutely not. She again turned into a robot, the career politician she's always been. I think her big problem is the campaign does not allow her to be who she really is. Kamala Harris is the person who truly believes in the new Green Deal. Okay, she believes in reparations. Okay, she believes in open borders. She believes in banning fracking. Okay, she believes in higher taxes. I mean, this is who she is. But because the campaign has made her switch up on all these positions, when she speaks about them, it doesn't sound authentic. Why? Because that's not who she is. And that's why this town hall was another disaster for her. It was not authentic. I didn't hear anything in there that made me say, wow, she's getting better. Okay, I respect that. No, it's the same old freaking Kamala Harris. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think about this audio town hall that she did with Charlamagne the Fraud? I didn't really talk much about him because I don't even think it's worth it. He's a clown too, okay? I thought some of the questions were definitely softball. I don't think he even pressed her on anything. I think it's just ridiculous the way that he handled it. But hey, at least it happened and it gave us an opportunity to react. So I want to hear your reaction in the comments section below. Now listen to this. What's more ridiculous is what Kamala Harris has recently been up to. which is trying to get Trump to release his medical records because, again, she's desperate at this point. I dive deep on that exact issue. So if you want to watch that video, you can click on it because it's coming up right now.